performance and practicality. This is the M3 Touring that BMW should have built, or rather, should have built more of. And now this man is doing just that. But given the choice, one or the other, what would you have? Classic or modern? This episode is driven by Hagerty, who, in case you don't know, provide car insurance that's designed by drivers for drivers. So, if you have a special car that you don't drive every day, like one of these perhaps, then take a trip to hagerty.com/Henry. Or pick up the phone, give them a call, and speak to a like-minded enthusiast about a quote.
New cars are cool, but have you heard old cars? The E46 M3 went on sale at the turn of the millennium. So for those of you that were lucky enough not to even have been born at that point, or those of you like me who are old enough now to have forgotten the figures, let's just go through them. Under the bonnet is BMW's S54 engine. Straight six, naturally aspirated, compression ratio of 11.5:1 with individual throttle bodies. Interestingly, it's actually got a cast iron block and an aluminium head, unlike its more prosaic cousin, the M54, which had aluminium block and aluminium head. The numbers: 338 brake horsepower at 7,900 RPM, with a red line at 8,000. The torque was 269 pounds-feet at just under 5,000 RPM.
At the back there is the famous variable M differential lock, or MDiff, that was developed with GKN and uses a viscous system. Suspension is McPherson struts at the front and a multi-link setup at the rear, and the coupe weighs in at 1560 kilos or 3,439 pounds, which is perhaps not quite as light as you might expect.
Other things to note, throwbacks I suppose if you like, although this has got drive-by-wire throttle, we have still got hydraulically power-assisted steering. And of course, a manual gearbox. This is the Getrag G420 6-speed gearbox, and it's so typically BMW. You could blindfold somebody, make them use this shift, and you would just know it's from BMW. That slightly sort of knuckly shift, perhaps not the best in the world, but so distinctive. Just the one button really to press, Sport down there, which just sharpens the throttle response. It's no wonder the E46 M3 was so popular. About 85,000 of them were produced in total, but that was only across, well, hardtops and convertibles. They never produced this, the Touring version.
Or rather, they did, but only one. A clearly well-resolved concept resplendent in chrome shadow metallic paint. It was made in the year 2000, right at the start of E46 M3 production, but the wider world never got to see it at the time.
Seeing these two cars here together, both resplendent in Laguna Seca Blue, rams home just how right this looks as a Touring. So the question is, why didn't BMW do it in period?
Clearly the concept wasn't just a flight of fancy. It's akin to the CSL concept that came before the production model of that car. The trouble was, BMW got very mixed messages about the Touring when it asked two different groups of people whether they'd like to see it sent down the production line.
One was a group of journalists, like me I suppose, all of whom of course said, "Yeah darling, you should produce this straight away." However, the other group was a group of BMW M3 owners, and they said, don't really want it, thank you. But of course, if you own the coupe or the convertible, you're probably not in need of an estate, so you're not going to be that enthusiastic about it. The people they should have shown it to, well, Audi RS4 customers, at that time the B5 generation. They, with their Avants, I think, would have been a lot more enthusiastic.
As it was, BMW hid the Touring away in the archives, and it didn't see the light of day again until 2016. Over the years, some people have embarked on projects trying to make one-off clones of this unicorn and found it surprisingly difficult. But now a company here in the UK is taking things to the next level.
It wants to breed unicorns. It seems a non sequitur, isn't it? There's more than one unicorn. It's no longer a unicorn. Is it?
This is Petroyle, a small company based in Oxfordshire known for its coffee mornings and concourse level restorations. It's made up of engineers, young and old, but the man in charge is Gregg Alvarez, who also owns that matching Laguna Seca Blue coupe.
Where did your love of BMWs spring from, I suppose, originally?
So I went straight into restoration after a brief sort of look at motorsport.
Yeah.
Went into restoration, Jensens, Maseratis, along those sorts of lines. But I've always loved German stuff, Volkswagens, and then later on BMWs. I ended up going through a phase of putting V8s into E30s, which I really loved. And then kind of it almost happened overnight that the appreciation for M cars, that was what you would drive to work on these cars.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the workshop starts becoming full of M cars. And that's just naturally the way the business has progressed. This has been a real passion project, but you're seeing more and more of that love for German stuff, especially BMW.
These new M3 Tourings obviously need donor cars, a non-M Touring and an original E46 M3, but don't worry, there's nothing really sacrilegious about the process.
You're not taking the very best examples of E46 M3s to convert them into Tourings either, are you? There's enough out there to make these without.
Yeah, I think that's the beautiful part about the Touring conversions is it doesn't require a coupe even to build them. So there's in the UK at least, there's a good selection of convertibles that we can take off the road and use for this. And obviously the added benefit of most of those haven't been driven to within an inch of their life. And then there's also, unfortunately, some of these are 25 years old now. They've got to a point where there's some really rusty ones out there, and some of the ones that are in here are that badly repaired, badly welded up, cracked boot floors. So yeah, if anything, we're kind of giving them a new lease of life in a different body. So this is a ground up restoration, complete strip back to a shell, painted in the colour I want, which is Laguna Seca Blue, which is the colour I always wanted, with a cinnamon interior. The real challenge is the bodywork.
Yeah.
So the wings incorporating the M grills, the rear bumper, the side sills, even the little things like the M mirrors on the doors. It's not straightforward stuff, but when you've got a coach building department that used to build in Rolls-Royce and Albus and all the rest of it, it's a relatively simple task for us. But the whole project was still done as a skunk work, sort of in the evening, weekends type job. We decided we wouldn't tell anyone about it until we finished, just to see what the reaction was.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, one of the most difficult bits is actually the rear arches, because they don't go into the doors, the rear doors on this. So
the fierce debate that's still going on the internet and has been, with the E90, now the G80s, the G81s, other manufacturers, Audi, they like to blend their rear arches into the doors. BMW never have done that. There's been some excuses come out that they've done it because they like the stance and all the rest of it, but it's probably because they didn't want to make a different rear door. So really, that's kind of been one of the hardest things about this, with the catalogue of modifications you can make to an E46 M3, whether it's a coupe or not. It was just trying to stay really hardcore and true to the concept that BMW had made. Yeah. So the question of whether or not we were going to flare the arch into the door for us was just a no-brainer. We do straight away. We would finish the arch before the door, exactly the same as the concept car. Personally, I quite like it, whether or not other people do. But again, like I say, it was all about staying true to the concept, right down to the rear diffuser. We've copied all of it.
Because it's got that little ducktail, isn't it?
Yeah, the little ducktail diffuser.
Goodness knows what that.
Yeah, which we kind of worked out is a blend of what's available on the normal M Sport bumper. They've kind of integrated it into the rear diffuser, and that's where it's come from.
Probably what they didn't do for the concept is make the whole of the rear end out of carbon fibre.
Yeah, so again, it's kind of it's a nice opportunity for us where everything that we build here is sheet steel, sheet aluminium, even ash framing, to actually build something modern. We've done a lot of grafting, ABS, plastic welding and stuff to make the original panels, some of which are still fitted to this car. But going forwards, it's so much more cost effective just to tool up and have those parts made out of carbon. So for all the production models, this one has carbon wings. The production ones will have carbon side sills, carbon rear bumper, and then the options of carbon front bumper, roof, which customers seem to be very excited about. So it's purely just from a labour perspective, but it's a nice little additional add-on that people get excited about carbon, don't they? So.
Well, it's halfway to an M3 CSL Touring,
Exactly,
isn't it, at
yeah.
that point? It's kind of...
If you don't want or can't have a manual, then obviously an SMG box is an easy alternative, as is left-hand drive. If you want a brand new 0 miles S54 engine, then Gregg can get you one of those from BMW. Equally, he's happy to talk about V8s or even V10s going under the power dome.
It's such an appealing proposition, this. The practical performance, the sporty estate car, the one-car garage. The steering is quite slow. I think kind of you could probably fit a CSL rack to this to just speed it up a bit, and you might want to do that, I suspect, and add maybe a carbon airbox as well to increase the sound. But then that takes away some of the, well, the Q car factor, I suppose. And this really does feel so understated. I love it. No splitters or wings. It sort of goes unnoticed unless you know what you're looking at.
It's sort of the same with a coupe, but it's even more so with the Touring. The interior has aged well too.
This all at once feels like, well, a bit of a nostalgia trip, but also a brand new car. When somebody says that, you sort of think, yeah, it's going to be nice. But this is amazing. It shows what a proper restoration can be. I've got all these buttons here, and yet the plastics, they look brand new. And I speak as somebody that drives this early noughties car and knows how bad plastics from that era can be, but these are just pristine. Brand new steering wheel as well. I love the dials in there. They've always been some of my favourites with the red line, the lights that sort of go up as the engine gets warm. The screen in here, they can put obviously Apple CarPlay in here as you would expect, but somehow I think it would feel wrong in this car. It would spoil the nostalgia trip. You want to see those original graphics with their slightly pixelated text. It's just lovely. And the leather as well. Oh, new leather. Smells wonderful. And then perhaps the most important part of this particular BMW M3, the boot, which is actually a decent size. It looks like it might be quite small from the outside, but no, you get about 450 litres in here, and it's got the stripes on the carpet as well, which is, I remember, something BMW press office did first of all back in the day. Oh, and of course, the obligatory dog net in there as well.
Oh, and of course, because it's a BMW, there is the wonderful rear window hatch for easier access to the boot. It really does feel like it would be a joy to live with.
It's such an easy car to drive, but with such wonderful natural balance. It has that fluidity through the corner. You can sort of feel the front, but then as soon as you get on the throttle, just drive it through with the rear. And of course, the E46 has such fantastic balance over the limit as well. You can hold them at seemingly whatever angle you want. Some cars are happiest at particular angles, sort of a lot of lock or a little lock. Lots of slip, little amounts of slip, but the E46 just seems happy wherever.
As you may have noticed, this is riding on 18-inch wheels, which is not only faithful to the concept, but was always the best choice dynamically.
You forget you really do have to rev this engine. It's not a chore, but you do have to work at it that bit more to get the pace out of it. That amazing metallic kind of crackle, is it just resonance from the exhaust? It's amazing. Yes, obviously the CSL sounds even better with its carbon airbox at the front, but boy does a standard S54 sound good.
It's interesting and somehow admirable that Petroyle decided to keep the car so stock. It must have been tempting to tweak or tune, but for better or worse, it really is unadulterated.
And that's the unusual thing about this car, because it's not a resto mod, because there's no mod in this. It's just like a brand new car from the early noughties. It's like I've stepped through some sort of wormhole. It's playing with my mind.
25 years ago, a new E46 M3 would have set you back about $45,000 or £40,000. Today, for a Touring, well, there's understandably been a bit of inflation.
Because obviously a lot of work has gone into this, and therefore it's going to set you back about £130,000. And that is exactly the same as one of these. This is the G81 M3 CS Touring. And you might think that with its turbocharged S58 engine, its electrically power-assisted steering, its xDrive, its 8-speed automatic ZF box, it would be no competition at all for the E46. But this is no rose-tinted review. This car is absolutely brilliant. And it's not just because this is more potent either. Yes, we have 543 brake horsepower and 479 pounds-feet of torque, but it's the feel of this car that makes it so great.
The G81 is obviously bigger, certainly in terms of grille acreage, but I thought it was interesting to contrast the power, torque and weight of the two cars in terms of percentage increases.
The new car, the G81, has 60% more power and nearly 80% more torque. Weight, well, that's about 20% more. What does that mean in terms of overall performance? Well, it's 1.7 seconds quicker, so 5.2 plays 3.5 to 62 miles an hour. What makes this a CS? Well, as ever with BMW, it's actually quite hard to tell. Yes, it's 15 kilos lighter thanks to a carbon fibre bonnet and the lack of an armrest here, which is a little bit annoying. But in terms of, well, the chassis tune, we get stiffer engine mounts, and they just say there are specific tunes for the dampers and ESP. But it feels like an awful lot more than that. Yes, the standard car is brilliant, but this just has something extra. The precision of this, I mean, I'd argue that the steering is actually better than the E46. The way this lets you thread it down a road and still soaks up the bumps, it's just brilliant.
Regardless of added practicality, I think in purely dynamic terms, the Touring is simply the best variant of the current M3 or 4 to be behind the wheel of.
Even the xDrive has such lovely balance to it. It does actually sound pretty good. It's got a titanium silencer. It's not spine tingling like the E46, but it's not bad.
Not all the sounds it makes are good though.
Shut up with your bonging. That is annoying.
ADAS aside, the G81 is a joy to be in, and it stands up to back-to-back comparison with the legendary E46.
It is actually surprisingly quiet when you first get into this. The new car is louder than you might think. The steering feels that much slower, which we've talked about, and you have to remember to rev this engine. But there is such joy, such engagement from having that manual shift. It's easy to forget what a big part it plays. And of course there are no real buttons to press in this. There's the sport button to sharpen the throttle, but you don't play with the dampers at all, they're just fixed rate. This is what you get, comfort and sporty.
I've racked my brains for an analogy from another arena, and the best I can come up with is cameras. A Leica M with a roll of Velvia 60 versus the latest Q3.
So here's the dilemma. I'm going to give you £130,000. Very nice of me, I know. And you get the choice of one car. Only one car. This is going to be your one car garage, because that is really the whole point of these, isn't it? Are you going to choose to live in the year 2000 or 2026?